My daughter worked day and night to earn a scholarship, but my sister and parents made her lose it. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved ones. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. Poke. Imagine working your entire life for something, only to have your own family rip it away from you. That's exactly what happened to my daughter, and I will never forgive them. My name is Sarah, and I raised my daughter Lily on my own. Life has never been easy for us, but Lily never complained. She was one of those kids who carried a quiet fire inside her. She worked harder than anyone I've ever known, and she believed that if she pushed herself, one day she could change her future. From the time she was little, Lily had big dreams. While other kids were out having fun, she was at the library reading. When she turned 16, she took on a part-time job at a local diner. She spent her weekends tutoring other kids in math and volunteering at a community shelter. Even when she came home exhausted, she would sit down with her books and study until late at night. Sometimes I would tell her to rest, but she would just smile and say, "Mom, this is worth it. I know what I'm working toward." Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. After years of hard work, Lily finally had a chance to see her efforts pay off. She was selected to interview for a prestigious scholarship that would cover her entire college education. It was everything she had dreamed of, a full ride to a top university, the kind of opportunity that could completely change her life. We both knew that this was the moment all her sacrifices had been leading to. I couldn't have been prouder. But what I didn't know then was that the people I trusted most would become the very reason she lost it. You see, family is supposed to protect you, stand by you, and celebrate your victory. I thought my parents and my sister would be happy for Lily, maybe even proud that she was achieving something none of us ever had before. Instead, jealousy and favoritism twisted what should have been a moment of joy into something painful and unforgettable. That scholarship wasn't just about money. It was a symbol of everything Lily had fought for. Every late night, every sacrifice, every moment she chose hard work over giving up. And when it was stolen from her by the very people who were supposed to love her, the wound cut deeper than anything either of us had faced before. What happened next changed our lives forever. Lily had always been the kind of student who stood out. In every class, teachers noticed her focus and her determination. She wasn't just smart, she was driven. While many teenagers looked forward to school dances, football games, or summer vacations, Lily's mind was on her books. She believed that education was her ticket to a life beyond the limits we had known. Even when she wasn't feeling her best, she never let herself fall behind. There were mornings when she woke up with a headache or a fever, but she still dragged herself to school, refusing to give up ground. Her dedication was more than just effort, it was sacrifice. When her friends planned trips, she stayed behind. When others were out celebrating, she was at her desk, preparing for exams or working on essays. At times, I worried that she was missing out on the fun that most kids her age enjoyed, but Lily saw the bigger picture. She wanted to build a future where she wouldn't have to struggle the way we always had. She carried that vision inside her, and it pushed her forward, even when life became tiring. I did what I could to support her, but as a single mother, it wasn't easy. Money was always tight, and college applications came with fees that piled up quickly. There were evenings when I would head to a second shift, my body aching, just to make sure she could apply to the schools she wanted. Each dollar I earned felt heavy, but knowing it was helping Lily chase her dream made it worth it. Sometimes I came home long after midnight, only to find her still awake at the kitchen table, highlighters spread across her notebook. Seeing her that way kept me going, even when I wanted to collapse. The day she received the letter about her scholarship interview was unforgettable. She opened the envelope with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the page before filling with tears. For a moment, she couldn't even speak. She just looked at me, and I could see everything in her expression: relief, joy, and hope. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was a chance. She had been chosen to meet with the panel for a scholarship that covered everything: tuition, housing, books. For a girl like Lily, it was the dream she had been chasing since childhood. That interview was more than an appointment on a calendar. It was a door opening to possibilities that had once seemed impossible. It meant she could focus on her studies without worrying about debt. It meant she could stand on her own 2 feet, secure in the knowledge that all her effort had not been wasted. Most of all, it was proof that her sacrifices had led her somewhere extraordinary. For the first time, the future looked wide open, and Lily finally felt that all the nights she had stayed up pushing herself had brought her to this moment. The storm arrived with heavy rain and strong winds pounding against the windows. The house shook with every gust, and thunder rolled above us like the sky was ready to split open. Tension inside felt even louder than the storm outside. I was in the kitchen with Grandma when Ethan walked in, his face hard and tired. He barely looked at her before turning on me. We exchanged sharp words, one after another. I begged him to see reason, to stop treating Grandma like she was nothing, but the more I spoke, the angrier he became. His voice rose until it filled the room, his frustration spilling over. He shouted that I didn't understand, that I was only making things worse by standing in his way. Amanda stood nearby, watching the fight like it fueled her. Instead of calming him down, she pushed him further. She said Grandma wasn't his responsibility anymore, that he had a family of his own to care for now. She repeated the same bitter phrases she had used before, and I could see the way Ethan's jaw tightened each time she spoke. Her words wrapped around him, making him harder and colder by the second. Then, in one sudden moment, Ethan snapped. He grabbed Grandma's small suitcase, the one she always kept neatly packed with her few belongings, and dragged it toward the front door. My heart dropped as I realized what he was about to do. Grandma tried to speak, her voice trembling, asking what was happening, but he ignored her completely. The front door swung open, and the storm howled inside. Rain pelted the doorway, soaking the rug in seconds. Ethan lifted the suitcase and tossed it out into the downpour without hesitation. The sight froze me where I stood. Grandma's eyes filled with confusion and hurt as he turned toward her neck. I ran to him, begging him to stop, pleading with him to think about what he was doing. But he was too far gone. His anger twisted his face as he shouted at me. He said if I cared so much about Grandma, then I should take her and leave with her. His words cut deep, sharper than the lightning flashing outside. I turned toward Grandma, who stood quietly, clutching her shawl around her shoulders. She looked smaller than ever, standing in the doorway with the storm behind her. Her body shook from the cold wind rushing through the open door. The humiliation on her face broke me in a way I can't describe. Amanda crossed her arms and stayed silent, her eyes cold as stone. Ethan's chest rose and fell heavily, but he didn't take back a single word. That night, as the storm raged outside, I watched the woman who had given us everything stand shivering on the porch, thrown out of her own family's home by her own grandson. It was the moment I knew nothing between us could ever be the same again. The wind whipped across the porch, and rain poured down in heavy sheets. Without thinking, I ran to Grandma, wrapping my coat around her frail shoulders. She was shivering so badly I could feel her body trembling beneath my arms. I whispered that she wasn't alone, that I was here, and I would never let her stand out in the storm like that. She gave me a weak nod, but her face showed more sadness than fear. I hurried her down the steps, guiding her carefully to my car parked by the curb. My clothes clung to me, soaked through within seconds, but I didn't care. I opened the door and helped her inside, making sure she was safe before running around to the driver's seat. She clutched the coat tight, her lips pale, and her eyes staring straight ahead. I started the engine, my hands shaking, not from the cold but from the anger boiling inside me. As the rain hammered the windshield, I looked at her and tried to reassure her, but she spoke first. Her voice cracked as she apologized, saying she never wanted to be the reason for fights in the house. She said maybe if she had left sooner, things would have been easier for everyone. Hearing those words broke me more than anything Ethan had said. How could she blame herself for the cruelty of others? I reached over, held her hand, and told her firmly that she had nothing to be sorry for. The only people who should feel shame were the ones who put her in that position. In that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going back inside that house. I wasn't going to keep living where kindness was treated as weakness and love was treated as a burden. That home wasn't safe anymore, it was poisoned. I knew leaving meant cutting ties with Ethan completely, but after what he had done, I couldn't imagine forgiving him. He had crossed a line that could never be repaired. Grandma didn't argue. She just leaned back in the seat, exhausted, as the storm raged on around us. I could still hear the thunder rumbling over the sound of the engine, but my focus stayed on the road as I pulled away from the driveway for the last time. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't need to. We drove through the storm slowly, the wipers barely able to keep up with the downpour. Grandma stayed quiet, holding onto my coat like it was the only thing keeping her warm. I squeezed her hand whenever I could, silently promising her that I wouldn't let her go through this pain again. By the time we reached a small motel on the edge of town, the storm had started to settle. I parked, walked her inside, and got us a room for the night. It wasn't much, but it was safe, and it was ours. For the first time in hours, I saw a hint of relief in her tired eyes. That night, as she finally rested, I sat awake, still shaking with anger, vowing I would never forget what Ethan had done. Lily left the house that morning with her folder pressed tightly against her chest, her steps quick and nervous. She had been checking the time every few minutes, hoping she could still make it. But by the time we reached the university, the campus was quiet. The building where the interviews were being held had its doors locked. A staff member standing nearby told her the panel had finished hours earlier and that no more candidates would be seen that day. The words hit her like a punch. She tried to explain, saying she had been delayed, begging if there was any way they could give her a chance. The staff member only shook their head and said the committee had a strict schedule. The opportunity she had worked so hard for was gone. I watched her knees weaken, and she sat on the steps outside the building, holding her folder as if it could somehow change what had already happened. Her face was pale, and the tears she had been holding back finally fell. That evening, I demanded answers from Amanda. I asked her why she hadn't let Lily leave earlier, why she told her there would be plenty of time. Amanda didn't even look ashamed. She admitted she had known the exact time of the interview. She shrugged and said, Chloe needed her cousin there. Besides, if Lily really deserved it, she would have found another way. Her voice was cold, as if she had done nothing wrong. When I confronted my parents, their response was even worse. My father crossed his arms and said, It's only fair Chloe gets opportunities too. Lily doesn't need everything handed to her. My mother nodded in agreement, saying Lily was strong enough to bounce back, but Chloe wasn't. They made it sound like sabotaging Lily was justified, like her hard work meant nothing because Chloe was struggling. It was as if they believed success was something that should be divided evenly, even if it meant tearing one child down to lift another up. Hearing those words broke something inside me, but it shattered Lily even more. When she realized the truth, that her aunt and grandparents had done this on purpose, she sobbed uncontrollably. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hands covering her face, whispering, Why would they do this to me? I never hurt them. I just wanted a chance. I wrapped my arms around her, but there was nothing I could say that would take away the pain of betrayal. For Lily, it wasn't just about losing the scholarship. It was about knowing the people she trusted had worked against her. She had carried herself with discipline, sacrifice, and hope, and in one morning it had all been taken away by those who should have protected her. Watching her break down like that, I knew something had changed forever. The wound her family left wasn't just deep, it was unforgettable. I couldn't stay silent after what had happened. The day after the interview, I drove straight to Amanda's house. She opened the door with a fake smile, acting like nothing was wrong. My anger boiled over, and I asked her how she could live with herself after destroying Lily's chance. Amanda leaned against the doorway with her arms crossed, smirking as if my rage was amusing to her. Lily will survive, she said casually. She's smart. She'll find another way. Chloe needed this more than she did. Her words made my stomach turn. It was as if Lily's sacrifice, her sleepless nights, and her years of effort meant nothing. Amanda spoke as though Chloe had some greater right to success, as though Lily's hard work could simply be brushed aside. I tried to reason with her, telling her that Lily had earned her opportunity, that taking it away was cruel. But she only shrugged, her smirk never leaving her face. Later, I went to my parents, hoping they would understand the pain Amanda had caused. Instead, I was met with coldness. My father frowned and told me I was being dramatic. You always think the world revolves around you and Lily, he said. My mother chimed in, her voice sharp. You're selfish, Sarah. You only see Lily's struggles, but Chloe has had it hard too. Stop acting like your daughter is the only one who matters. Their words felt like knives. They twisted the blame onto me, as if protecting Lily and standing up for her was something to be ashamed of. They refused to admit the truth, that they had chosen sides and allowed Amanda to hurt Lily. I left their house shaking with anger, realizing there was nothing I could say that would make them see the damage they had caused. When I got home, Lily was sitting on her bed, her eyes red from crying. She looked so small in that moment, like the fire inside her had been blown out. She whispered, Maybe they're right, Mom. Maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe I was reaching too high. Hearing her doubt herself broke me more than anything Amanda or my parents had said. I sat beside her and pulled her close, holding her tightly. I told her she was worthy, that none of this was her fault. I reminded her of every sacrifice she had made, every goal she had reached, and how proud I was of her. I promised her that no matter what anyone else tried to take away, they could never erase her strength or her potential. But as I held her, I could feel the weight pressing down on her spirit. The betrayal had cut deep. She had lost not just her chance at the scholarship, but also her trust in the people she once called family. That wound was not something a few words of comfort could heal. After the heartbreak, I feared Lily might give up completely. For days, she was quiet, moving through the house like a shadow. But slowly, something inside her shifted. Instead of letting the betrayal crush her, she began to fight in her own way. One evening, she sat down at the kitchen table with her laptop and a notebook. If I can't have that scholarship, she said firmly, then I'll find another way. I won't let them win. From that moment, she threw herself into new applications. They weren't the big, full-ride offers like the one she had lost, but dozens of smaller scholarships, community programs, and grants that together could help cover her education. She researched every possible opportunity, sending out essays, filling out forms, and writing letters late into the night. Some required personal statements about hardship, others asked for proof of community service, and she gave each one her full effort. To make up for the gaps, she also started picking up more hours at her part-time job. It meant long evenings after school, sometimes coming home past midnight with her feet sore and her eyes heavy. Still, she refused to complain. She said, "I'm going to build my own future piece by piece if I have to." Watching her determination made me proud, but it also broke my heart knowing she had to carry so much weight at such a young age. I did everything I could to support her. I worked extra hours myself, sometimes staying late at the office or picking up weekend shifts. There were nights when both of us sat at the kitchen table, side by side, her typing away on an essay while I sorted bills. We were exhausted, but we shared the quiet determination that we would not let what happened define her. I cooked quick meals, proofread her essays, and reminded her to take short breaks when she pushed herself too hard. At the same time, I began to pull back from Amanda and my parents. I stopped answering their calls unless absolutely necessary. I no longer shared updates about Lily's progress, because I knew they didn't truly care. The distance felt necessary, like closing a door that had been left open too long. Whenever they tried to reach out with their fake smiles and shallow words, I kept my answers short. My focus was on Lily, not on keeping peace with people who had already proven they could not be trusted. Though it wasn't easy, Lily's strength grew each day. Every rejection letter stung, but every small acceptance fueled her determination. Piece by piece, she began to gather enough to make her dream possible again. It wasn't the easy path she had earned before, but it was hers, built from her own persistence. And in that determination, I saw a new version of her emerging, stronger, wiser, and unwilling to let betrayal decide her future. A year passed, and the wounds of that terrible day had started to heal, though they never disappeared completely. Lily had built a new path for herself with sheer effort, and I was proud of her resilience. Around the same time, Chloe began her own round of college applications. She decided to apply to the very same university Lily had once set her heart on. But the difference between them was clear. Chloe's grades were average at best, and her application didn't shine. She hadn't put in the work, and it showed. Amanda knew it too. That's why one evening she showed up at my door, her face painted with false sweetness. She carried Chloe's draft essay in her hand and said, "Sarah, I know you're good at writing. You always had a way with words. Could you please help polish Chloe's essay? She really needs this chance." Her request made my chest tighten with anger. She wanted my help after everything she had done? I looked her in the eye and spoke calmly, though my voice carried all the weight of the past. "I don't owe you anything, Amanda. You took my daughter's chance away, and now you can live with that. Don't bring Chloe's problems to me." Amanda's smile vanished instantly, replaced by frustration. Her eyes narrowed as she snapped, "You're being petty. Chloe shouldn't have to pay for the drama between us. Be reasonable, Sarah." I stood firm. "Petty? No, Amanda. What you did to Lily was cruel. You don't get to sabotage my child's future, and then come here expecting me to rescue yours. I won't do it." My voice was steady, and for the first time, I saw Amanda's confidence crack. Not long after, my parents called me, trying to pressure me into giving in. My mother said, "It's family, Sarah. You should help. Don't punish Chloe for Amanda's mistakes." My father added, "You've always acted like Lily is better than everyone else. Chloe deserves a chance too." Their words no longer had the same power over me. I replied firmly, "No. This isn't about punishing Chloe. This is about boundaries. You all took Lily's opportunity away without a second thought, and now you want me to clean up the mess you created? I won't. My loyalty is to my daughter, not to people who betrayed her." Amanda raged, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and heartless, but I didn't flinch. For once, I didn't let guilt or their accusations sway me. I had spent too many years bowing to their favoritism. This time, I chose to protect my daughter and myself. Walking away from Amanda and my parents wasn't easy, but refusing them felt like reclaiming something they had stolen long ago. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was a quiet revenge, the kind that cut deeper than shouting ever could. They wanted my help, and I denied them. That silence was its own justice. When the admission results began rolling in, the difference between Lily and Chloe became impossible to ignore. Chloe's applications came back one after another, each with the same message: rejection. The universities she had applied to didn't see enough in her grades, her essays, or her record to consider her a strong candidate. Each letter chipped away at Amanda's pride, but there was nothing she could do to change the truth. Chloe simply hadn't earned it. At the same time, Lily's efforts were beginning to show results. One by one, her smaller scholarship applications were accepted. 1,000 here, 2,000 there, another for books, and another for housing. On their own, they weren't huge, but together they added up to nearly everything she needed. Piece by piece, she had built her way back to the dream she thought had been stolen forever. The day she received her acceptance letter from a respected university, I watched her face light up in a way I hadn't seen in months. She held the envelope with shaking hands, and when she read the words, her eyes filled with tears, not from pain this time, but from triumph. "I did it, Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. I hugged her tightly, proud beyond words. She hadn't just been accepted, she had rebuilt her dream from the ground up. Meanwhile, Chloe's future looked very different. With no university offers left, she had no choice but to settle for the local community college. There was nothing wrong with community college, but for Amanda, who had spent years boasting and competing, it felt like a defeat. She couldn't hide her bitterness when she saw Lily preparing for her new beginning. Suddenly, Amanda and my parents tried to shift their behavior. They showed up with gifts for Lily, offering congratulations, pretending to be proud of her achievement. Amanda smiled too widely, saying things like, "We always knew she'd make it. She's such a bright girl." My parents nodded along, acting as though they had supported her all along. But Lily and I weren't fooled. Their sudden change in attitude didn't erase the betrayal. It didn't erase the tears Lily had cried when they stole her first chance. Their attempts to rewrite the story of what happened only showed their guilt. We responded with polite smiles, but there was no warmth in our words. Inside, we both knew the truth. They hadn't believed in her, they had worked against her, and now they wanted to share in her success. We didn't let them. Lily focused on preparing for her new chapter, and I stood by her side, keeping the circle small and safe. The family who had once sabotaged her no longer had the power to hurt her. The distance we had created stayed in place, and for the first time, I felt peace in holding that boundary. What Amanda and my parents had tried to take away had come back even stronger, but it was no thanks to them. It was Lily's resilience that carried her forward, and that was something no one could take credit for but her. Looking back on everything, I often think about how betrayal feels. People expect it from strangers, from rivals, from those who stand against you. But the deepest cuts don't come from enemies. They come from the people who should have loved you the most. That is what my daughter and I learned the hard way. My sister and my parents chose jealousy over love, and their choices left scars. Yet those scars didn't break us. They reminded us that we had to stand for ourselves, even when family turned against us. I once thought revenge meant striking back, making those who hurt us feel the same pain. But over time, I realized that true revenge looks different. It isn't about destroying someone else's life. It's about proving them wrong by rising higher than they ever imagined you could. Watching Lily rebuild her dream from nothing, watching her succeed without their help, showed me that the sweetest revenge is living well despite what others tried to take from you. Lily carried herself forward with pride. She refused to let bitterness keep her down. She used the pain as fuel, and her strength grew brighter because of it. When she packed her bags for university, there was a quiet confidence in her eye. She knew she had earned every step she was taking, not because someone handed it to her, but because she fought for it. That kind of strength can't be broken, and no one, not even family, can take it away. As for me, I made a decision I should have made long ago. I cut ties with Amanda and my parents. Their version of family was built on favoritism, manipulation, and betrayal. I didn't want that poison around my daughter or myself anymore. At first, the silence felt strange. Holidays were different, birthdays were quieter. But with time, I felt lighter. I realized I had been carrying the weight of trying to please people who never truly cared for us. Letting go of them gave us room to breathe, room to heal, and room to grow. We built our own kind of family, one filled with peace, loyalty, and honesty. It wasn't about blood anymore. It was about love and respect. I chose my daughter above everything else, and I have no regrets. She is my pride, my strength, and my proof that resilience runs deeper than betrayal. In the end, justice came quietly. Amanda and my parents had to live with the choices they made, watching from the outside as Lily succeeded without them. They tried to rewrite history, but they couldn't erase the truth. The story was written already, and it was clear. Lily rose, and they had no part in her victory. For us, the future feels hopeful now. We carry the lessons with us, not as a burden, but as a reminder of what we survived. Betrayal hurt us, but it didn't define us. Strength, resilience, and love, that is what defines us now.